How you doing there? Welcome back to Babylon Talmud. Today we're studying Daf Mem Tes, Daf 49 of Masechta Gittin. Friends. Woo! Today we start the fifth parak of Masechta Gittin. Friends, we really got to earn these dafs. Yesterday was, we had to earn yesterday. We got to earn today. We're going to have to earn. Tomorrow's going to be a biggie. Friends, we want me to tell you, we got to earn these dafs, friends. We got to earn these dafs. We're starting the fifth parak of Masechta Gittin. We're going to start really on Daf Mem Ches. We really have pretty much the whole Amud of Daf Mem Ches. But yesterday's daf was so long on its own that I didn't want to get started with this whole thing. If we got started on the fifth parak yesterday, yesterday would have been an hour and a half. So, and we're ending a shtickle early on Mem Tes. Tomorrow is going to be the big one, I think. It's a big one. Anyways, starting the fifth parak of Masechta Gittin. Let's just kind of jump in, I guess. Hanizokin shomen loin beidis. Uvalchov bebenonis chsubas isha beziboris bemeir omer af chsubas isha bebenonis. Now, okay. So we're talking about when people are owed money and they're collecting from property. Do they collect from the idis property, which is the best, the creme de la creme, or from the benonis, which is in the middle, and the intermediate, the middle, the pariv, or from ziboris, which is the least valuable. Now, of course, either way, you're getting your money's worth, right? So, meaning if you're owed $1,000, so if you're collecting from the best land, you're going to get less land. If you're collecting from the worst land, you're going to get more land. Okay, you're going to get your $1,000 worth, but everybody wants to get the best land. Okay. So now, hanizokin shamelon beidis. So the damages, right? So if somebody's owed damages, right? Ruvain's ox eats up Shimon's field, so he's got to pay. For what his ox ate. So he's got to pay from his best fields. Uvalchov bebenonis. Now Balchov, right? Shimon lends Ruvain $1,000. Ruvain defaults on the loan, so Shimon collects property. So he collects it from Benoni, from Balboyot. So he collects from intermediate, sort of middle valued property. Now, a woman, if she's collecting her ksuba from property, she collects from the lowest quality property. Reb Meir says that ksuba is also collected from middle valued property. Okay. You do not collect from nechasim mishubadim when there's nechasim b'nei chorin. Okay, so Shimon lends $1,000 to Reuven. Okay, Shimon lends $1,000 to Reuven. Now the deal is, Reuven has to return the $1,000 to Shimon. If Reuven doesn't return the $1,000 to Shimon, so his property is meshubah to that loan, so Shimon can collect property. Now, Reuven has two fields. One of the fields is a Benoni field. The other field is a Ziboris field, right? Benoni being middle quality, Ziboris is low quality. Now, Reuven, when he borrowed the money from Shimon, said that if I don't pay back, I'm going to pay with fields. So both of those fields are meshubad to the loan, right? That Shimon can collect from them if Reuven defaults. Now, and as we said, that a Baal Chov, Shimon, a creditor, collects from Benonis. But what Reuven does is he sells the Benonis to Levi. Reuven then defaults on the loan. Shimon comes to collect from the property. So now, Shimon on the one hand wants to collect the better property, wants to collect the Benonis, but Reuven sold the Benonis to Levi already. So what we're saying is, what are we saying? We're saying, Ein Ephraim min Chosim Shubadim. Shimon does not get paid back from the field that Levi bought from Reuven Since there's an additional field that nobody purchased, that belongs to Reuven, that Shimon can take that field, even if that available field is Ziboris, which is a lower quality field, still, you're not going to go to Levi and take Levi's field that he bought from Reuven if Reuven has another field that's available for the taking, even if that field is of lower quality. And if Shimon lends $1,000 to Reuven, okay, then Reuven dies, and Shimon wants to collect his money from Reuven's estate. So Shimon can only collect from Ziboris property, not from Benonis or Edis. Ein motziin la'achilas peris u'l'shvach karkos u'l'mozon ha'isha v'abonus minichosim mishubadin v'pnei tikun olam. Pam pam pam, param pam pam. What does that mean? Okay, what this means, so let's first, we got four things over here, right? We got Achilas Peris, we got Shvach Karkos, we have Mojana Isha, we have Bonus. Let's start with Achilas Peris and Shvach Karkos. This is talking about a situation where Reuven steals a field from Shimon. Reuven steals a field from Shimon. Reuven steals a field from Shimon. He then sells that field to Levi. Reuven steals a field from Shimon, and he sells that field to Levi. Now, Levi is busy, he's got his new field, he's working it, he's, fertilizing the soil, and growing fruits, and, also figs, maybe he's growing figs. He's making a whole fig matzav. Anyways, in the meantime, Shimon goes to Levi, and he says, "Hey, Levi, I'm sorry, but this is my field, Levi." So Shimon, of course, gets his field back. Now the thing is, Levi goes to Reuven and he says, "Hey, Reuven, what the heck, man? I didn't know that you stole that field from Levi. I got to give it back to Levi now." Now, whoa, no. I'm sorry, I didn't know that you stole that field from Shimon. Levi says, I got to give that field back to Shimon now. But now, when Levi purchased the field from Reuven, of course, they had a document. And on the document it says, Reuven guaranteed the field. He says, "Look, Levi, if anything happens, I have another field. You can collect from that field. If anything happens to the field I'm selling you now, go to my other field and collect from there." The thing is, of course, there's a thing with Reuven. Reuven's, he's all over the place. He sold that field to Yehuda. So now Levi comes to Reuven. He says, "Reuven, you sold me a stolen field. I have to give that field back to Shimon. Now, when you sold me the stolen field, you said that if there's any issues, I can come and collect from one of your other fields. Now, I know that you sold your other field to Yehuda, right? He only has one other field, and he sold it to Yehuda. So Levi can go to Yehuda and say, "Hey, that field was meshubad to my sale, and therefore, so Levi can get paid back for that field from nechasim meshubadim, from Yehuda. But that's only the price that he paid for the field, right? He paid however much he paid for the field, so he can collect that from the nechasim meshubadim, from the field that Reuven sold to Yehuda. But the peiris, but the fruits that subsequently grew on the field, that now he had to give to Levi, or the fact that he had to give to Shimon, right? Levi's the one who purchased the stolen field. But Levi now lost the fruits the figs that he so what's the word? That he so diligently, no, is there a better word for hardly? That he so hardly worked on? No, hardly is not the right word here. That he so motivationally, dude, I don't know what the word is. That he so dedicatedly worked on. Anyways, so what about the figs that now he has to give to Shimon when he takes back his field? What about the fact that he had fertilized the field and the soil is now better? What about that? What about these? So what about the fact that that there's this additional value above and beyond the amount that he paid Reuven for it? How does he get paid back for all those figs? How does he get paid back for the shvach karkos? The fact that the soil is better now. So that he cannot collect from Nechasim Mishubadim, that he cannot collect from Yehuda, that he can only collect from Bnei Chorin, from free land. Okay, and it was also Mazon Isha v'Abonos. Also, if a fellow dies, so his wife and his daughters, so they get sustained from his estate, they can only collect from Nechasim Bnei Chorin, not from Nechasim Mishubadim. Fine. Okay, fine. All right. So again, so Emotzin la'achilas peris v'l'shvach kakos. So Levi cannot get paid back for his figs and for the improved property, the improved land, ulamazon isha v'abanus, and the mizonis of a wife and daughters if the husband dies. Min nechasim mishubadim, that cannot be collected from nechasim mishubadim mipnei tikun olam. V'amotzi mitzia leishav mipnei tikun olam. And oichit, a fellow who finds epis, right? He finds a lost object and he goes to return it, and the guy says, "Hey, you're not giving me the whole thing." So in that case, the finder will not have to swear because of tikkun olam. Friends, we're 12 minutes into the daf, and all we did was the Mishnah on Memches. Today's daf is Memtes. Chevron, I told you, we're going to have to earn it. Says the Gemara, Mipnei tikkun olam, d'oraisa. What do you mean that if Reuven's ox eats Shimon's field, he has to pay Shimon from the Edis, right? The best fields, from the best land, because of tikkun olam. D'oraisa. That's not tikkun olam. That's state in posuk. It says is a fairish posuk. It says in the Torah, right? D'oraisa. The pasuk says meitav sadeu meitav karma yishali. That he has to pay he's got to pay with the best of his with his fields, with the edis. So Abaye says, well, the opinion in our Mishnah that says tikkun olam is Rabbi Yishmael. The Omer that Rabbi Yishmael says midoraisa, that midoraisa b'denizak shaiminon. We evaluate the edis based on the nizak. That because of tikkun olam, we pay back with the mazik. What? Who could explain to me what that means? It means if Reuven, and we're going to be getting into this, that if Reuven is Reuven's ox eats Shimon's field, all right. Now Reuven is a big tycoon, a big tycoon. Shimon is a Pasha Yid. Shimon's edis, Shimon's best fields, are as good as Reuven's worst fields. So the shaila is it b'denizak shamina? Do we say the best fields, i.e. Shimon's best fields? Or do we, but Shimon's best fields means that Reuven has to pay Reuven the tycoon is paying him his worst, right? Reuven's worst fields are the equivalent of Shimon's best fields. So if we go based on Shimon's best fields, so then it's, so then his edis, but his edis is Reuven's worst stuff. Or do we go based on Reuven's edis, which is mamish world class? So Rabbi Yishmael says it's b'denizak shaminon. We pay Shimon's edis. Rabbi Akiva says that we pay Reuven's edis. And now the tikkun olam is that even though, right, our Mishnah is Rabbi Yishmael, who says that you only have to pay Shimon, the Pasha Yid's edis, but because of tikkun olam, what does Rashi say? That she'ihun is hard milahazik, the b'mazik shaminon, right? That people will be careful. Reuven's going to be careful to make sure that his ox doesn't eat Shimon's field, because mipnei tikkun olam, we say that actually Reuven has to pay Shimon with Reuven, the tycoon's edis, which is world class, top notch, creme de la creme. So that's it. So again, so Frekti Gemara from the beginning, Mipnei Tikkun Olam D'Oraisa. What do you mean that we pay Edis by damages because of Tikkun Olam? It's Shtei in Posik. The Pasuk says, Meitav Sadeu Umeitav Karmo Yishalim. That he's got to pay with the Edis, he's got to pay with the best. So Omer Abaye says, Abaye, the Tikkun Olam is Lo Tzricha El Rabbi Shmuel. It's needed for the opinion of Rabbi Shmuel to Omar, who says Midoraise B'Denizak Shaiminon. That Midoraise, when we say the Edis, it's the Edis of Shimon, the Pashut Yid. But Komash Bulan Mipnei Tikkun Olam. But what the Mishnah is saying is that, however, because of Tikkun Olam, so that people will be careful to make sure that their oxen aren't eating other people's stuff. Shaminon B'Demazik, we evaluate based on the mazik, based on Reuven the tycoon, and he's got to give the best of his best, his world-class creme de la creme, and that will make him think twice before, or being extra careful to make sure that his ox isn't eating other people's stuff. My Rabbi Shmuel knew what's this opinion of Rabbi Shmuel? Titania is we learn in a brayso, Meitav Sadeu Meitav Karmo Yishalim. That the pasuk says that in the case of Reuven's ox eats Shimon's field, so it says Meitav Sadeu Meitav Karmo Yishalim. He's got to pay the best of his fields, the Edis. Meitav Sadeu shel Nizak uMeitav Karmo shel Nizak. Div Rabbi Shmuel. Rabbi Shmuel says we're talking about the Edis of the Nizak, Shimon's Edis, not Reuven's Edis. Rabbi Kiva Omer says, Rabbi Kiva lo ba'akasuv ella. Rabbi Kiva says nisht el legabus l'nizakin min Edis, to collect from the nizakin from Edis, and the assumption is that means, and we're going to confirm later that it means from the Edis of the mazik, Reuven the tycoon's Edis, the kavachomer the hekdesh, and then certainly for hekdesh, the Gemara is going to have a whole thing on what does that mean, hekdesh. Okay. Now, the Gemara, Rabbi Shmuel. Now, according to Rabbi Shmuel, Ochel Shmeina Mishalim Shmeina. Okay, so I understand. So, according to Rabbi Shmuel, who says that it's Benizak Shaminun, that Reuven pays Shimon's Edis, Shimon's best stuff. So, I understand if Reuven's Reuven's ox eats Shimon's Shmeina, his best stuff, his Edis. So Reuven's ox ate Shimon's best stuff, so he's got to pay back Shimon's best stuff. But what I don't understand, says the Gemara, is why if Reuven's ox ate Shimon's worst stuff, does he have to pay back with Shimon's best stuff? He should just have to pay back the equivalent of what he ate. So Amar Idi Bar Oven says, Ravidi Bar Oven Ochab Ma'iskin, what are we talking about over here? Kigon she'ochla aruge beno arugis, that the ox ate a row of the field that was among other rows. And because it was among other stuff, we don't remember what the ox ate. It was in the middle of the field. There was some good stuff there, some less good stuff. We don't know. Did he eat the shmena? Did he eat the klusha? Was it the edis? Was it the boris? The mishalim lei mimetav. And therefore, what we're saying is that in that case, when we're not sure if the ox ate the edis or the ziboris, so Reuven is going to be responsible to pay the higher end stuff, the edis. So Amar Rava, but Rava says, I don't understand. If we know for a fact that the ox ate the ziboris, so Reuven would only be responsible to pay ziboris. Hasha delo yadinon mishalim shmeina? Says Rava, I don't understand. And now that we don't know, did the ox eat ziboris? Did the ox eat edis? Hamotzi michaver olav arayah. If Shimon's going to want Reuven to pay edis, well, he's going to have to prove to Reuven that his ox in fact ate the edis stuff, because otherwise Reuven could say to Shimon, how do you know that my ox ate the edis? Maybe my ox ate as far as I'm concerned, as far as we know, my ox ate ziboris. Therefore I'm paying you ziboris. So Rava says, I don't understand. How could you say that we don't know if the ox ate ziboris or ate edis, therefore Reuven is responsible to pay the higher one, the edis. Reuven can respond and say, 1 second, Shimon, if you want me to pay the more expensive price, you have to prove to me that my ox in fact ate the Edis ate the better stuff. Otherwise, I'll argue that my ox ate the Ziboris, the less expensive stuff, and that's what I need to pay. And if you want me to pay more, you have to prove it. The burden's on you. If somebody wants to extract payment from somebody else, they have to prove that they're in fact owed that higher rate, or any rate at all. If you want to extract payment from somebody, you have to prove that you're owed it. Rather says Rav Acha bar Yaakov, Hochav ma'eskinon. Here, what are we talking about? Kigon shehoisa idis denizak kiziboris demazik. It's talking about a case where the idis of the nizak of Shimon's idis is the equivalent of the ziboris of Ruvain. Ruvain's a big tycoon. He's a big macher, and Shimon's a pasha yid. Shimon's idis, which is what the cow ate, is the equivalent of Ruvain's ziboris. And the question is, so is Ruvain responsible for the edis of Shimon, or is Ruvain responsible for his own edis, which is, top-notch, world-class, creme de la creme? So from the top of Mem Tes Amud Aleph, finally 20 minutes into the daf, we're on today's daf. Hochav ma'eskinon kigon she'oisa edis denizak kiziboris demazik. That the edis of Shimon, the best stuff of Shimon, was equal to the ziboris, the same value as the ziboris, the same quality as the ziboris as Reuben the tycoon. Rabbi Shmuel Sovar b'denizak shaminon. So Rabbi Shmuel says that Reuben is responsible to pay his Reuven's ziboris, which is the equivalent of what his ox ate, which is Shimon's edis. Rabbi Akiva Sovar b'demazik shaminon. Whereas Rabbi Akiva says nisht. Reuven has to pay his top-notch stuff, his edis, his world-class creme de la creme. My time with Rabbi Shmuel. How come Rabbi Shmuel says it's b'denizak shaminon, that it's Shimon's edis? Nemer sode lamata v'nemer sode lamala. That the pasuk says, ki aver ish sode ocher v'shilachas be'iru uvir b'sdei acher mitav sadeyu umitav karmer yishalim. Right, so the pasuk says, right, uvir b'stei acher, right, that Reuven's ox is eating Shimon's field. Now it says meitav sadeu meitav karmo yishalim. So Reuven has to eat meitav karmo, right? Meitav sadeu meitav karmo, the best of his field, the best of his vineyard. So we see that it says sadeh 3 times really in the pasuk, but we're referring specifically to the last 2. So it says sadeh 2 times in the pasuk. The first sadeh is a reference to Reuven, to Reuven's ox eating Shimon's field. So it's Shimon's field, and then it says sadeh again with regard to payment. So says Rabbi Shmuel, nemer sadeh lamata, it says sadeh by the payment, v'nemer sadeh lamayla, and it says sadeh by the field that's getting eaten. Ma sadeh amur lamayla denizak, just like the first field that's mentioned is Shimon's. So sadeh amur lamata, also the sadeh in the context of the payment is oichit, denizak is oichit Shimon's. So that's how Rabbi Shmuel learns that it is b'denizak shaminon. Rabbi Akiva savar, Rabbi Akiva, however, holds meitav sadeu yishalem de'aich dekam mishalem. Right, then by the payment it says that he has to pay his best fields, his edis. So de'aich dekam mishalem, the one who it's the fields of the one who's paying, the payers' fields, the payers' edis. Reuven the tycoon's edis. Rabbi Shmuel says, Rabbi Shmuel ahani gzeir shaveh v'ahani kra. Rabbi Shmuel uses both methods, right? He uses the gzeir shaveh of sadeh, but he also uses meitav sadeh yishalim. Ahani gzeir shaveh lichda amarin. So Rabbi Shmuel uses the gzeir shaveh like we said, that just like the first field is the field that's being eaten, so also in the payment it's Shimon's field, right? The field, the edis of Shimon, whose field was eaten. Ahani kra, and what we learn out from the pasuk of the isle lemazik edis v'ziboris. If Reuven has edis and ziboris, v'ziboris didei lo shavya ki edis denizak, the mishalim lemi meita. So up until now we've been talking about a situation where Shimon's edis is the equivalent of Reuven's ziboris. What about a situation where Shimon's edis is better than Reuven's ziboris, but not as good as Reuven's edis? So in that case, Rabbi Shmuel would say that Shimon would get paid with the idis of Reuven, right. So again, so we learn out right. Islay lemazik, right? The islay lemazik idis v'ziboris. If Reuven has idis and ziboris, v'ziboris didei lo shavik idis denizak, and Reuven's ziboris is not as high quality as Shimon's idis. So the Mishalim Lemimetav, Reuven has to pay from his idis, from his best stuff. Now we move on to the hekdish piece. Rabbi Kiva Omer says Rabbi Kiva lo ba'akosuv, that Rabbi Kiva argues with Rabbi Shmuel. Rabbi Shmuel had said that it's b'denizak shaiminun, that it's Shimon's idis. Says Rabbi Kiva, no. No, it's not like you're saying, Rabbi Shmuel. Rather, it is to collect for nizakin from idis, meaning the idis of the mazik, Reuven, the tycoon's idis. V'kavachomer lehektish, and then certainly by hektish. My kavachomer lehektish. No, tell me, what's this kavachomer lehektish? The nagche Torah didon, the Torah de hektish. If it's talking about a situation where, Reuven's ox gores a ox belonging to the Beis Hamikdash of hektish, that somebody was maktish. So shor re'eu amrachmana v'lo shor shel hektish. Yeah, but the pasuk says that with regard to the payments, that if Reuven's ox gores his fellow's ox, not the ox of hektish, so I think it's unclear. Does that mean that he doesn't pay at all, or? But anyways, he. Okay, let's say he doesn't pay at all. Okay, so these payments are only by hektish, are only by if Reuven's ox gores his fellow's ox, but not an ox of hektish. So don't tell me that we're talking about paying back for the ox of hektish, because you're not paying for the ox of hektish. Ella, the Omer Hare Olai Mon Levede Kavai. So let's say it's talking about a fellow says, I'm going to donate $100 to the Beis Hamikdash, to the temple treasury. Da'asi Gizber v'shakol me'idis. That Rabbi Kiva is saying that in that case, if Reuven donates $100 to the Beis Hamikdash, and the treasury comes to collect it, they collect it from idis. But lo ye'el balchov. But if that's the case, that he commits $100 to the Beis Hamikdash, and the treasury comes to collect it, so the treasury is be'etzem a creditor. Uvalchov dino be'beinonis. We said in the Mishnah that a Baal Chov is paid in Beinonis, not in Idis. V'chi tema kusav Rabbi Kiva Baal Chov shakol b'Idis, kinizokin. And if you're going to say, no, but what Rabbi Kiva holds is that actually a Baal Chov is paid, a creditor is paid back with Idis. And now like our Mishnah says that a Baal Chov is paid back with Beinonis, maybe what Rabbi Kiva is saying is that a Baal Chov is paid back with idis, just like by nizakin, we said. But we can ask a kasha. I understand why a Baal Chov would be paid back with idis, because after all, that same fellow, if he got damaged, right, just like if Shimon is a creditor who's coming to collect from Reuven, so we're saying he collect from idis according to Rabbi Kiva. That also makes sense though, because if Shimon got damaged from Reuven, he also can collect from idis. Tomar behektish, but you can't draw a parallel to hektish to say that hektish, if the treasury is owed money, they'll be paid by idis. Shekein hura kochu b'nizakin, because after all we said that when it comes to hektish, by nizakin, if a shore of hektish gets damaged, there's no payment. So meaning I understand to say that by regular Baal Chov, Shimon, who's owed money, he can collect from idis, because also if Shimon got damaged, he collects from idis. But hektish, if a shore of hektish gets damaged, there's no payment there. So why would I assume that when the treasury is collecting the $100, they can collect from idis? So and for the Gemara, le'olam dinagche Torah didan the Torah de hektish. So actually, really, it is talking about where Reuven's shore gores a shore of hektish. Gores a shore of hektish. Well then, but I thought, so what do you mean that we pay from edis? I thought we said that there's no payment in that case. Rabbi Akiva Savala Kribshim B'Menaseh, Rabbi Akiva holds like Kribshim B'Menaseh Titania. As we learn in the Brayso, Kribshim B'Menaseh Omer says Kribshim B'Menaseh Shor Shel Hektish Shenogach L'Shor Shel Hedjit, that if a shore belonged to the Beis Hamikdash of Hektish gored a regular shore, Potter, so the treasury does not need to pay for the damages. V'Shel Hedjit Shenogach L'Shor Shel Hektish, but if somebody's shore, if Ruvain's shore gores a shore of hektish, bein tam uvein muad mishalim nezik shalim, whether the Ruvain's ox is an ox that has been established as a gorer or not, it hasn't been worn 3 times yet. So either way, it makes no difference. If Ruvain's ox gores gores the ox of hektish, Ruvain needs to pay full damages. Okay, so we're saying that Rabbi Akiva holds like Rabbi Shimon ben Menashe, and that there are damages, and those damages will be paid with edis. With edis. If that's the case, we might be edis denizak kiziboris demazik plige. But then, fact the Gemara, if we're saying that Rabbi Akiva holds like Rabbi Shimon ben Menashe, that when it comes to hektish, actually, if Ruvain's shore gores a cow of an ox of hektish, says Rabbi Akiva that you have to pay, because he holds like Shimon ben Menashe that Ruvain would have to pay. Well, if that's the case, we established earlier that the machlokas between Rabbi Akiva and Rabbi Yishmael is in a situation where Shimon's edis is the equivalent of Ruvain's ziboris. And we're saying Rabbi Yishmael says that it's bedinizak shaminan. Rabbi Akiva says that it's bedemazik shaminan. That's the machlokas. But the Gemara suggests, one second, maybe there's no machlokas regarding that. Maybe Rabbi Akiva agrees with Rabbi Yishmael regarding that it would be bedinizak shaminan. And the machlokas between them is with regard to hektish. That Rabbi Yishmael holds like the Chachamim, that if Ruvain's ox gores an ox of hektish, there's no payment. Whereas Rabbi Akiva argues and holds like Rabbi Shimon ben Menashe that if Ruvain's ox gores an ox of hektish, he pays full payment. So maybe that's the machlokas between Rabbi Akiva and Rabbi Yishmael. But in terms of when Shimon's edis is the equivalent of Ruvain's ziboris, maybe Rabbi Akiva would agree with Rabbi Yishmael that it would be bedinizak shaminun. So it's Yochim, why did be edis denizak kiziboris the mazik plige? Who says that Rabbi Yishmael and Rabbi Akiva are arguing when Shimon's edis is the equivalent of Ruvain's ziboris? Dilma dechuli alma bedenizak shaminun. Maybe Rabbi Akiva agrees with Rabbi Yishmael that in that case we would evaluate based on Shimon's edis. But over here the machlokus between Rabbi Akiva and Rabbi Yishmael is beplugged to Rabbi Shimon ben Menashe v'Rabbanan kamifligei, where they disagree is with regard to if Ruvain's ox gores an ox of hektish. What's the halacha? Rabbi Akiva saw like Rabbi Shimon ben Menashe. Rabbi Akiva holds like Rabbi Shimon ben Menashe that Ruvain would be responsible to pay in full. Rabbi Shmuel saw like Rabbanan, and Rabbi Shmuel holds like the rabbis that he doesn't have to pay. But im kain, the Gemara says, my lo ba kasuv, the Gemara says nisht, because if you want to say that they agree with regard to when the Shimon's edis is the equivalent of Ruvain's ziboris, then how do you understand when the pasuk says was lo ba kasuv, right? That Rabbi Akiva is arguing with Rabbi Yishmael, says nish, that's not what the pasuk means. You're understanding the pasuk wrong. So it sounds like he does disagree also with regard to that case when the Shimon's edis is equivalent of Ruvain's ziboris. V'od my kal v'chomer hektish. Then also what's the kal v'chomer for hektish, right? If we're saying that we are lenient on Ruvain, to say that even though Ruvain's edis is more expensive than Shimon's edis, still he only has to pay Shimon's edis, then what's the kal v'chomer to hektish, right? The whole point is that we're being stringent on Ruvain, that he has to pay his own creme de la creme edis. And certainly, by hektish, you would have to pay from edis. Also, Ha'amr Rav Ashi, and this is sort of the most definitive of them. Rav Ashi says that Tani, we have a brayso that explicitly says, Behedja explicitly, Meitav Sadeu, Meitav Karmi Yishalim, that when the pasuk says that you have to pay the Edis, Meitav Sadeu shall Nizak, or Meitav Karmi shall Nizak, to Rabbi Shmuel. Rabbi Shmuel says that we're talking about the Edis of the Nizak. Rabbi Kiva Omer, whereas Rabbi Kiva says, Meitav Sadeu shall Mazik, or Meitav Sadeu Karmi shall Mazik, that we're talking about the Edis of the Mazik, so of Reuven. So there you have it explicitly. Rabbi Shmuel says that we evaluate Shimon's Edis, where as Rabbi Akiva says that we evaluate with Reuven's Edis. Okay, fine. Things get easier now. So now, where are we? Oh, so we had asked in the Kasha, what? We had asked in the Mishnah that what does it mean that by Nizokin you pay with Edis because of Tikkun Olam? What do you mean Tikkun Olam? It's a pasuk. It says Meitav Sadeu, Meitav Karmi Yishalim, that you have to pay the Edis. It's a pasuk. What do you mean Tikkun Olam? So we said, well, really the halacha is like, who is it? Abaye. So Abaye says, look, really the halacha is like Rabbi Yishmael, that Reuven just has to pay Shimon's Edis, even if Reuven's own Edis is creme de la creme, way better, but he can get away with paying Shimon's Edis. Now, but because of Tikkun Olam, so that Reuven will be careful to make sure that his ox isn't going and eating things. So we say that, you know what, because of Tikkun Olam, Reuven's going to have to pay his creme de la creme. But now it says Ravina Omar, the Olam Astis and Rabbi Akiva, that actually no, the Mishnah is Rabbi Akiva, that Reuven has to pay his creme de la creme. The Omar Midaraisa b'the Mazik Shaminon, that really it's Reuven's Edis. V'Reb Shimoni Tidarish Taima Dikra. And it's like Reb Shimon who says that we can expound reasons for the pasuk. Matam kamer. What the Mishnah is saying is Matam an Hizakin Shamalem Beidis. How come the halacha is that Reuven has to pay his creme de la creme? Mipnei Tikkun Olam. Because in order to make sure that Reuven's going to be careful. Meaning, the halacha is like Rabbi Akiva, that Reuven has to pay his own creme de la creme, not Shimon's edis, but his own edis, which is world-class, top-notch creme de la creme. So what's the Tikkun Olam? The Tikkun Olam is the explanation for why Reuven has to pay his top-notch stuff. Because Tikkun Olam, that we want to make sure, the reason why the pasuk is saying that he pays his own thing is because he pays his really expensive stuff is because of Tikkun Olam, to make sure that Reuven will be careful that his ox shouldn't go and eating people's fields, because he's going to have to pay his creme de la creme. Okay, so again, matam anizakin shamalim beidis. How come the Torah says that Reuven has to pay his own edis? Mipnei Tikkun Olam. The reason for that is, the rationale is because of Tikkun Olam. The Tanya is, we're learning a brayso. So Reb Shimon says, Reb Shimon, there's a note that says Reb Shimon ben Elazar, Mipnei, and also there's a note that says Torah. Why does the Torah say anizakin shaman loin beidis? How come the Torah says that by damages you have to pay creme de la creme? Mipnei gazlonim. Because of the thieves and because of the chamsonim. Chamsonim are people who steal something and then throw money at you. So they're paying you, but you weren't planning on, it wasn't for sale. Kadesha Yomar, so the reason why when it comes to damages you have to pay back with edis, with the best stuff, is that a person will think twice before stealing. Shomar Adam Lomani goes of Lomani Chomes. So say, why should I steal? Why should I be Chomes? Because if I steal, tomorrow Bezdin's going to come and just take my best stuff. It's not worth it. It doesn't pay. Based on the pasuk, that I'm going to have to pay from the edis, from the best stuff. And that is why we say that by damages you pay from the best stuff as a because of Tikkun Olam, why do I even bother trying to think of words? As a nabbit. What's the thing that like when you like try to prevent people as a dag nabbit? I feel like it starts with a D and it's not dag nabbit. Dag nabbit. Whatever. So to make sure that people dag nabbit. How can we say that that if Shimon lends $1,000 to Ruvain and Ruvain defaults, Shimon collects from the one second, I gotta turn off the camera so I can think for a second. Dude, I have no freaking clue. Alright, let's go weiter. So how can we say that if Shimon lends money to $1,000 to Ruvain and Ruvain defaults on the loan, so then Shimon collects from Ruvain's middle kind of level property. So where am I? So that a fellow should not notice that, oh wow, his friend's got a nice property. He's got a nice dira, he's got a nice house. He says, how about this? Reuven's got a nice house. Shimon says, you know what? Let me lend him some money. And therefore, hopefully he'll default on the loan, and then I'll get his house. So that's why we say that no, a Baal Chov doesn't get the best stuff. He gets the middle stuff. Well, if that's the reason, so why don't we just say that a Baal Chov, that a creditor gets the worst stuff? Then certainly there won't be any ulterior motives. So im kain atano delas b'fniloven. Well, that wouldn't work out because that will backfire. Because Shimon says, "Why should I lend Reuven money? It's so inconvenient. He's going to default on the loan, and I'm going to be stuck with like garbage property." So if we say, "Look, Shimon's not going to be able to collect from the best stuff because then he might lend money just so that he can, hopefully Reuven will default on the loan and will get his house." But at the same time, it doesn't get the worst stuff because then Shimon's not going to really be interested in lending money in the first place. Look, it's the middle stuff. Basically, Shimon lends Reuven money, and he also has the security that if Reuven defaults, at least he'll just be able to get sort of, land, not amazing land, not bad land, but he'll get land and it'll be paid back. Right? Because otherwise, Shimon, right? If Shimon can only get paid back from the bad stuff, well then you're locking the doors in front of borrowers, right? Reuven needs money. Reuven's not going to be able to borrow money from Shimon if Shimon doesn't want to lend because it's a headache. Reuven's going to default and he's going to be stuck with bad land. So therefore he's not going to want to lend money. So in order to prevent locking the doors in front of borrowers, we just say, look, if Reuven defaults, Shimon will collect sort of just regular land and that would be acceptable. Ksubas Isha b'Ziboris, how come a woman's ksuba is collected from the lowest quality lands? Divrei Rabbi Yehuda, Reb Meir Omer b'Beinonis. Reb Meir says it's middle quality lands. Omer Reb Shimon, the reason why she gets paid with the Ziboris is Mipnei Ma Amru Ksubas Isha b'Ziboris. How come she gets paid back with Ziboris? Sheyoseh mimasha ish rotze liso ha'ish rotze linose. Because more than a fellow wants to marry, a fella wants to get married, and therefore even if her ksuba is only collectible from Ziboris, it doesn't matter. She's still going to want to get married. Which is interesting because we've been seeing a whole bunch of times this concept of china, right? That the men have to be careful because if they're not be careful, the women aren't going to want to marry them. But over here we seem to be saying fakert, that actually more than a fellow wants to get married, a fellow wants to get married to the extent that the ksuba is only collected from the lowest quality property, and she would still want to get married. Alternatively, isha yotza l'rtzona v'shelo l'rtzona, a woman can get divorced whether she wants to or not. Right? If the fellow wants to get divorced, he gives her a get, and she's divorced whether she wanted to or not. V'isha eno motzia el l'rtzono, whereas a fellow only divorces volitionally. Right? I mean, kofen osu sheyoma rotzani. Right? We need him to say, "I want to divorce you," and give her a get out of his own volition, which is unfortunately how we have that terrible situation of aguna when you have these people who simply refuse to give the wife a get. My davar acher, tell me what's this davar acher, right? What does it have to do with what does it have to do with the price of tea in China? I guess that's the equivalent of ma'inyan shmita etzel arsinai. Right? Isn't that's the thing, right? What does that have to do with the price of tea in China or something? So my davar acher, what is this? So v'chi tema ki eichi dichi mapik lo ihu. It's something completely separate, it's completely unrelated. that if you're going to say that just like when a fellow divorces his wife, takinu la rabbanon ksuba mine, so he has to now pay her ksuba if he divorces her. Kinafka ihi nami liskne le rabbanon ksuba mino. Well, let's say that the opposite is also true. That if she's the one who wants to get divorced, maybe she should have to pay him a payment. So Tashma, Kamanir Isha Yotze Litzona V'Shelo Litzona. Look, a fella can get divorced whether she wants to or not, and the fellow has to pay her ksubah. V'Aish Einu Motzi Ela Litzona Efshe Damashi Lo Begita. Look, don't tell me that if she's the one who wants to get divorced, he should have to get payment. Look, if he doesn't want to divorce her, don't turn around and say, look, it was against my will. I didn't really want to divorce her, therefore I should get payment. Look, if he doesn't want to divorce her, he just simply won't divorce her because, right, that she can only get divorced, if he wants to get divorced. And if he feels so badly that he doesn't want to get divorced, so then just don't divorce her, which of course is a terrible, horrible thing and should never be done. But that is why a fellow would, can't claim that he's entitled to a ksuba. Okay, friends, that was daf Mem Tes of Masechta Gittin. We started the 5th parak of Masechta Gittin. Very, very difficult. Whatever. It's methodical. You have to really grind through it. You have to really grind through it. We talked about we started the 5th parak. We talked about all sorts of different things. What gets paid back from Edis, Ziboris, Beinonis, all sorts of different scenarios. Some complicated, some not as complicated. And then we saw machlokes between Rabbi Akiva and Rabbi Shmuel about b'denizak shaminun, b'demazik shaminun, beseder. And tomorrow we're going to pick up from where we left off. Right now I'm daf Mem Tes Amud Beis. Friends, I'm telling you, I'm nervous about tomorrow. I predict tomorrow's going to be a 2-hour daf. Friends, that was daf Mem Tes of Masechta Gittin. I hope you enjoy. Peace out.